Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island, the first two entries in the Monsterverse, and both entries giving us a unique titan, a unique kaiju for the respective hero to fight. In Godzilla 2014, we had the MUTOs, and in Kong Skull Island, we got the Skullcrawler. Now, both of those characters have been recreated in the HIYA TOYS Godzilla Kong line, and we're going to take a look at both figures in today's video. Now, one of these figures I like, one of them I don't like so much. Let's jump right into the video. We're going to start by taking a look at the Skullcrawler. Now, this figure here was released before the MUTO, so we'll look at it first. And this is the one that I have a few issues with. This figure here just has some problems with it that I just don't really like. And when I compare the two figures, you'll see why I like the MUTO just a little bit more. So let's jump right into taking a look at the Skullcrawler. Alright, so kicking things off with the Skullcrawler, we're going to talk about the elements that I really like. So, the sculpt on this Skullcrawler is absolutely fantastic. HIYA TOYS has done an incredible job replicating the look of the Skullcrawler. I mean, looking at the signature skull itself, that looks really nice. You've got the intricate details there, the correct sort of skull shape, everything is very nice. The neck as well, you've got that very nice sort of scaly look there, and you can see the underlying musculature on that. You've even got some sculpted in sort of droopy, sort of flab skin there. That looks very nice. Same on the back, guys. You've got that bone ribcage sticking out there, some more bones here, and some underlying musculature over the whole thing. And again, those scales, guys, absolutely incredible. The shoulders, nice defined musculature underneath those. Nice scales there. The arms, same thing. The sculpt on this Skullcrawler is absolutely incredible. The hand itself, guys, I mean, look at that. You've got that very nice talon sculpted there. That's actually a soft sort of material, so you don't need to worry about that one snapping or stabbing yourself. That one's very nice. And again, the hand detail itself, absolutely incredible. And there's even detail underneath the hand, which I think is very nice. And that detail, that sculpted detail, extends down the tail as well, guys. You've got that very nice sculpt. You've got all those scales, those wrinkles, those grooves. And it's all over the figure, even at the tip of the tail here. You've got that almost sort of palm tree-like, or pine tree, sort of spiked club tail end. That looks very nice. So HIYA TOYS has done an absolutely incredible job at sculpting the overall Skullcrawler. Now, the articulation on this thing, it's not the best, but it is very nice for what you get. The main feature that I love is just the dual action jaws there. So I'm assuming there's a gear sort of function in the middle there. You move the bottom jaw or the top jaw, and the other one moves in tandem. And I think that's very nice. And again, you get a lot of range out of the neck there. I mean, look at that. You can get that neck pretty much facing all the way to the left. You can get the Skullcrawler facing all the way to the right. I wish it was a little further, but for the two joints that you do get on this figure, it's very nice. And they are ball joints there. The segmented body as well, again, ball joints. I mean, look at that ab crunch, guys. Moving the hand out of the way, you can see the abs on the Skullcrawler, so you can flatten that out, and you can get a almost 90-degree bend. In fact, I'm sure if you move those joints a little more, yeah, you almost get a full 90-degree bend. So that's very nice. The overall articulation in the midsection and the neck, very nice. The arms themselves, guys, that's very nice as well. The shoulders are on a hinge joint here. You get another swivel at the bicep, double jointed elbow there, and you get two joints down at the wrist there, which comes in very handy for your crawling poses. You can really screw up that wrist there, and it really does help for posability. So the articulation on this guy is also very nice. It's not perfect, but it never was going to be because it is a smaller sort of character. Now, my one gripe with the articulation is the bendy wire tail. I'm not the biggest fan of bendy wires, and I think on this figure, the bendy wire kind of sucks. It makes posing the tail very hard. You can't really wrap it around anything without it sort of spiraling back. I mean, you can bend it, but it just doesn't look great. Like, you get a sort of J curve, and then you kind of have a straight end of tail here, and you can't really do anything with the end of the tail. I don't know if it's just the material used, but the bendy wire in here is just very hard to maneuver. So I'm not the biggest fan of the bendy wire. And then something else I'm not a fan of is that membrane in the mouth. It's a cool concept, but it doesn't really work in execution. As you can see, it's already starting to come off on the top jaw there, and you do have some rippage. If the camera would focus on that, you do have some rippage going on in there. So those two elements, in fact, something just flaked off on me just then. I hope that came up on camera, but if not, I'm sure I'll try to show it somehow. Anyway, not the biggest fan of the membrane there. It's breaking on me as we speak. And again, that bendy wire tail, not the best. But those two problems are far less compared to my main gripe with this figure. And it's my main gripe with HIYA Toys in general. And that is the paint, guys. I'm not going to lie. The paint on this thing is absolutely awful. It's borderline inexcusable. Look at how disgustingly messy those teeth are. They're so sloppy. You can tell they've been painted white, and then they've done a red wash just over everything, and it's really gummied those up. And that sort of whitish sort of, I don't even know, it's not even a bone color. It's more just whitish green. Dry brushing over the top of the skull, guys. You can see the brush strokes in that. That is absolutely horrendous. It looks so out of place. I'm not gonna lie, guys, the white on this figure, and the same can be said for the arm here, guys. The dry brushing of the yellow white here. Look at that, guys. There's brush strokes on that claw as well. That looks absolutely awful. It almost makes it look like a bootleg, and it's borderline inexcusable in my honest opinion. The small painted details that we do get, and that's really it. That's really the only painted details you get. That sort of whitish yellow dry brushing on the skull, on the hand, and then a little bit on the arm and hand there as well, guys. It looks absolutely awful. I'm not gonna lie. The dry brushing, I mean, look at that, guys. There's even paint all over that one claw there. It doesn't look great. The teeth look awful. And then there's not much other paint. I mean, you get a little bit of sprayed sort of shading effect done over the figure. You get a little bit of that here, and then some more sort of shading across the overall figure itself. But there's not much variation. The Skullcrawler is basically just green with a little bit of sprayed variation, and then some very, very sloppily applied dry brushing. And the problem is, that seems to be a bit of an issue across all of HIYA's figures. At least every single HIYA Toys figure that I own, the painted details are awful. I mean, or maybe not awful. Awful is a little harsh, but they're not great. The sculpted details are fantastic. It's just the painting that could use some work on some of these HIYA Toys figures. And in my opinion, this one just isn't that great. Now, I really like the MUTO. I think it's really, really cool. The fact that this thing absolutely embodies everything that it is to be a monster, to be a kaiju, to be a titan. It's really hard to classify. I mean, it has insect-like elements from the multiple limbs to how it reproduces, and yet it also has mammalian or reptilian-like features. I mean, it has a skeleton, it's got that mouth, it's got those jaws. It's just really, really cool to me that this thing feels like a true, unclassifiable monster. And there's very few kaiju, very few titans within the Godzilla universe that really fit that classification. And for that, I really do like the MUTO. And I think this figure here itself is also very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at it. Alrighty guys, so the MUTO fares a lot better than the Skullcrawler in terms of paint. There are some issues on this figure, and I will bring those up when we get to it. But first, looking at the sculpt, guys, the female MUTO here, she looks absolutely incredible. Most of the figure is sculpted with a lot of textures and a lot of details, and that's very, very nice. I mean, looking at the legs here, guys, you can see all of those wrinkles and all of those folds in the figure itself. So it's very nice that HIYA Toys has gone ahead and sculpted that in there. And again, much like those other figures, you do get that underlying musculature that has been sculpted as well. I mean, look at those nice deep sort of crevices there. You've got that muscle sort of texture here. You can almost see what looks like the bones of the hips on this figure. So that's very, very nice. The sculpted detail on the female MUTO is very nice. Looking at the other legs here, guys, or I guess these would be the arms. Which one of these would you guys consider the arms? Would these be the arms? these be the arms? Would they all be arms? Would they all be legs? I suppose it doesn't really matter. But again, the sculpted detail on that, guys, absolutely incredible, especially for just being essentially giant pillars with hooks on them. HIYA Toys did not skimp out on the details at all. I mean, look at that sort of sculpted lines in there, and that's very, very nice. And the painting has actually brought out a lot of those details here. It looks like this figure has a tiny bit of a wash, the same similar wash that Godzilla gets, that sort of terracotta-like sort of wash on it. And then again, some very nice gray dry brushing over the figure as well. Looking at the head, guys, I mean, just zooming in on the head, that looks absolutely incredible. You've got that signature sort of glowing eye there. The sculpted in teeth on this figure, absolutely incredible. And that tongue, that absolutely tiny tongue, is painted a nice pink color, and it's different from the inside of the mouth, which is a very nice sort of red. And I think that is very, very nice. I mean, the eyes, the tongue, the mouth, all similar colors, and yet HIYA Toys has taken into account the different shades there, and I think it's very nice. I got to commend them for that. That is indeed incredible. You also have some more of that sort of paint variation on the back of the crest here, and again, that's very, very nice. The sculpt on the head here, again, guys, very, very nice. You've got that signature sort of diamond shape there. It's very intimidating, very cool. I mean, when you have the arms posed in such a way, it just gives the MUTO such a very nice, very unique shape. It's sort of a shame that Hollywood seems to really love doing this kind of general monster design, and I think in hindsight, the more we get of it, the more it sort of takes away from the MUTO. I mean, you've got the similar monsters like the Cloverfield monster and those monsters from A Quiet Place, and I'm sure there's many others. But the MUTO itself, the figure we have here, this looks absolutely incredible. There isn't a spot on the figure that has sculpted detail forgotten. Even the bottoms of the feet there, those almost giraffe, horse-like hooves, I don't even know. Again, the MUTO is just such a cool design concept. It truly is just a monster. It's very hard to classify, and I think that's very, very nice. So the sculpt is very, very nice. The paint for the most part is nice. I mean, there is a couple of issues, like on the figure here, on its mouth. That just wasn't painted. I mean, I got it out of the box and it looked like that. That's horrible there. I mean, the teeth on these ones here, I believe those are supposed to be intentionally painted, and yet, I don't know, they look a little messy. And there are some other messy areas on the figure, like looking at that articulation joint, guys. You can see what has been painted and what hasn't been painted. And again, that seems to be HIYA Toys' main problem, is that they paint the figure once it's assembled instead of painting the individual parts. But again, very, very minor complaint. Most of the paint on this figure looks absolutely incredible, and I think it does fare a lot better than that Skullcrawler. And the articulation on this guy, very, very nice. It is a very stiff figure. I've sort of got it in a general sort of balancing pose, so I don't want to mess around with the articulation too much, but the articulation is nice. Pretty much everything here, so that's a hinge, that's a hinge, that's a hinge. So all of them, you get some nice sort of ratcheting movements out of it, so you can definitely move the arms in a lot of poses. And whatever's a hinge, you can also use as a swivel. So using this one arm as an example, this all pretty much applies to the other four main ones there. That's very nice. You can definitely get the the MUTO doing a lot of very nice, very cool poses. The hooks there as well, guys. Same thing, hinge. You've got that movement in the head. You've got the jaw. These small little arms, they move about. They're very, very nice. You got a joint in the middle there. That's more or less a swivel. You don't really get much of a hinge out of it, but you don't really need it for the female MUTO. A lot of the articulation you get in those arms, and that's very, very nice. And then the legs are more or less supporting joints, but again, you get a swivel sort of hinge here. A lot of the same sort of movement that you get in the arms or the big legs. I don't know, whatever you want to call those things. The arms, we'll call them the arms. You get a lot of that same movement in the legs there, and then the hips, as you saw before, ball joints. So you can actually spread those very, very nice. So the MUTO itself has some very, very nice articulation. It is a little bit limited just given the design of the character itself, but you can get it in some nice, creative, cool poses, and I think that's very, very nice. So the sculpted detail is very nice. The articulation is very, very nice. Let's do some size comparisons with the Skullcrawler and some other figures, and then we'll wrap up the video. Alrighty, here's your quick comparison between the HIYA Toys Skullcrawler and the HIYA Toys Kong from Kong Skull Island. And here we have our HIYA Toys female MUTO compared next to our HIYA Toys 2014 Godzilla. And here we have all 4 Titans in a very nice group photo. I think the scale on the 2 HIYA Toys figures we checked out today is very nice, and they do scale well with their counterparts. Alrighty guys, that about does it for today's video. Let me know down in the comment section below, which one of these 2 figures do you prefer here? I think they're both solid releases. They both have very nice details, some very nice articulation, and they do look very, very nice next to your other HIYA Toys Monsterverse figures. I've been Daikaiju Down Under. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.